live,
of,
breath.
What we're planning to do in this project, in the Life of Breath, is to study ideas of breath, breathing and breathlessness by bringing together historical, cultural, phenomenological ideas together with clinical perspectives and challenges. This is actually a picture of my son breathing on a mirror. It's difficult to bring breath into visible appearance. It's something that's all around us all the time, but actually it's not been much studied and not been much looked at. Biomedicine doesn't have all the answers. They're saying there's some things we don't understand. We're saying, well, I think sometimes those things are not understood because you're not asking the right kind of questions, or maybe you're not bringing in all the perspectives that will help. So I'm now going to hand over to Javi, who is going to say a little bit more about how we're going to go about this.
Jane is a clinician and I'm a respiratory patient, and I think that added a richness to both the relationship and understanding both of these perspectives, but getting them to communicate better. So one of the things we want to do in the project is try and see whether there is a cohesive connection between the experiences of healthy breathlessness when you exercise or dance and pathological breathlessness of the acute kind that respiratory patients experience, and whether they can mutually illuminate one another.
Breathlessness can be great when your body responds to the demands that you put on it. The trouble is, when your body is not able to respond to those demands, breathlessness can be dreadful, it can be frightening, terrifying.
Take a really deep breath in, hold it for a moment. Your need to breathe is going to get more and more, and your body is not responding to that urge to breathe. There's all sorts of things, unfortunately, that can go wrong with airflow. The tubes can become damaged, they can become narrowed, they can become stiff, they can become full of things that shouldn't be there. The muscular walls can go into spasm. But not only that, this recurring theme of invisibility. If I do not systematically ask about breathlessness and the limitations on that person's life, then that person may pick up that I'm not interested. Some phenomenal qualitative work done by my colleagues in King's. A quote from a patient is, well, you can't go to the doctor and tell them you can't dance. I think, yes, you can. Of course you can. If we do not signal from the clinical perspective that this is crucially important, we will have missed an opportunity of helping that person mould the way they live with breathlessness. And so it becomes every single bit as important in a clinical perspective as knowing how many lymphocytes you have in your lung biopsy. Thank you.
Anthropology is a discipline well versed in interdisciplinarity. Indeed, particularly in the USA, anthropology is characterized by its four fields approach: the social, cultural, biological, physical, linguistic, and archaeology. It's through the differences that I think you come to some kind of more holistic kind of understanding of a topic like breath. Here at Durham, we have both biological and social anthropologists working together under one roof. And we share that roof, if not the department, with our colleagues, the archaeologists.
I'm interested in exploring the interaction of people with their environments in the past through evidence of disease. My contribution to this event is from the perspective of identifying poor air quality in the past as seen in its impact on skeletal remains. Many more people would have experienced poor respiratory health. We don't pick up many respiratory diseases that only affect soft tissues. They are really the invisible ones, invisible to me as a paleopathologist, but maybe they were also invisible to their communities.
So very much into the lived experience of people in their everyday lives. How is breath, which is something that we often just take for granted, don't really think about. What can we learn from people in different parts of the world about how they manage breathing and breathlessness?
I'm your first breathing space, and I'm going to give you a bit of poetic theory.
The head, by way of the ear to the syllable, the heart, by way of the breath to the line. I say, a projective poet will go down through the workings of his own throat to the place where the breath comes from, where breath has its beginnings, where drama has to come from, where the coincidence is. All act springs.
Well, there's this whole area of the imagination, of the existential, that is not part of the conversation at the moment. And we want to bring that to the conversation. We want to have the conversation. It makes interdisciplinarity work better. The artist's influence is crucial within the research team.
When I started working as an artist to pin down the elusive invasive breath, I had no idea that some of the earliest works of art were created with the human breath. In this case, in these cave paintings, they were created by blowing a pigment over the stencil of a hand. So when I started my own journey, I was really interested in working out a way of actually making visible things we know. We think we know how to breathe, we think we know what it's like. But what does a sigh look like? If we sigh onto photographic film, it can look like this. If we actually sigh onto copper plate and then etch it, it can look like this. I was half an hour up the road in Sunderland working at the National Glass Centre, struggling to work out how to record the in-breath in a non-clinical manner. So the piece was created by blowing and creating an expiration from which the in-breath could then double back the force that pressure the in-breath can actually create on a surface.
Normally we don't hear breathing, but when there's something wrong, you do hear it. So I began to listen to recordings made through a stethoscope. Sounds like Velcro being pulled apart, or the sound of a humpback whale in the distance. And yet these are all sounds from within the human body.
Heart rate was a bit slower than mine is at the moment. The experiences that follow are our journey with breathing and its effects on our lives.
Memories of being at school, I've divided this into the good, the bad and the ugly. The good was my physical education teacher, who took pity on the runt of the pack, giving further tuition on breathing technique. The bad, the sick room, unfortunately, was right by the games fields, which was rather annoying as you listened to everybody else enjoying themselves. And then finally, the ugly. Aged approximately 16, the respiratory consultant warned that I'd be lucky to see 45.
Like James, I was very often left behind, and very often I was the one who was sitting things out and could hear other people laughing, and I'd often be sort of saying, "Wait for me," as when we went for walks or went off for runs. I used to like to sit at a table like this, or I'd stand with my hands on my knees like this. I didn't realise that it was because I needed to use accessory muscles to help me to breathe.
Since then, this has been a rather steep downward slope. Severe allergic asthma to emphysema to COPD to bronchiectasis and 2 forms of aspergillosis. So full-time work finished over 10 years ago, as everything takes much too much effort and you can't get anything done in the day. You can't commit to anything because you don't know how you're going to be.
We've got children, jobs, families, things that we'd like to do. I'd like to sew, but that is one of my drugs. When you all go home tonight, perhaps see if you can find a straw and try breathing through that straw for as long as time will allow you to. Then imagine having been doing that for hours, feeling tired, perhaps having a temperature, feeling unwell, having a cough, just feeling rotten and perhaps being just a little bit afraid. And now imagine that you're sitting on a trolley in an A&E department. All you want to happen is for somebody to come and make the next breath a little bit more easy.
It was really important to have James and Gaynor there at the launch event because this project is learning, obviously, from disciplinary perspectives on breathing and breathlessness, but we have a huge amount to learn from those that we would like to call experts by experience. The launch, of course, is just the beginning. The launch marked the time when we've got our project team in place, literally just in the last couple of weeks in place. And now we enter a period of really getting down to the research, which I'm greatly looking forward to. We have plans, we've got new people who've got ideas they will now want to follow. And for the next year, we're hunkering down, we're getting on with the research, and then we'll have more things to say.